Beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, so certainly before we begin, I'd love to start off by saying thanks to all the families who could be with us tonight. We're hoping that this can be a brief session for you just to gain a little bit of understanding about the EQAO test and how we administer here at school and sort of how it's going to impact both your child's learning and their achievement. I'd also like to say a big thank you to, I see that Mrs. Washer is here. Thank you very much, Ms. Washer, for joining us. I see Mrs. Vivian is here as well. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. Please feel free. This is an informal session. At any time, please feel free to jump in and share the information. We're two veteran teachers who have a lot of experience with this. So we'd love any information you have to share. And of course, thank you very much to Mr. Carpani and Mr. Merkley for joining us for this session today as well. Really appreciate your insights to be here. And again, we'll try to make it as quick as we can, get everyone back to their evening. And please, gents, also feel free to jump in with anything that you see as we go through. Okay. We know that one of the big things that we're here for tonight is to answer some questions. We're going to just briefly present a few core concepts about the EQAO process to you first. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end. By all means, if you feel comfortable sharing your question through the mic, do so. If not, throw it into the chat, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. Either one of the five of us who are here this evening will probably have an answer for you, and if we don't, we'll figure it out. How about that? So we are here tonight together to learn a little bit about EQAO. But before we start, we always do start in a good way. And this is our York Region District School Board land acknowledgement. We broke it into two sections because we know that this isn't just something we read, this is something that we do. So I'm going to just take a moment and read this through and then talk to you a little bit about the belts at the bottom. In York Region District School Board, what we know is we affirm that we are all treaty people, and we acknowledge that the York Region District School Board is a board located on the lands of two treaties. These treaties are signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the First Nations of the Williams Treaties, who are the Mississaugas of Alderville, Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Scugog Island, and the Chippewas of Beausoleil, Rama, and Georgina Island as our closest neighbor and our partners in education. That's what we know. What we need to do, and what we are really activating our students to do here at school, is to honor the agreement. We have to take up the responsibility to be respectful of Indigenous traditions on this land, the knowledge and the inherent rights as sovereign nations. And that's a really, really big piece that I will connect to in a moment with the belt down below. We respect Indigenous relationships with the lands, and we recognize that our connection to the land is through the continued relationships with our First Nations partners. We acknowledge our shared responsibility to respect and care for the land. And that's not just for us, of course. That is for all of the future generations of Canada. And down below, what you can see is something that's called the two-row wampum belt. Any students of mine who are watching will know exactly what we're talking about right now. The two-row wampum belt was one of the original agreements put in place. This treaty is a super important treaty, and those two purple lines indicate the original deal that we made as settlers. All of us who are here tonight are settlers on this land. And the deal that we made with the original Indigenous people, this being the Haudenosaunee of Upper New York State, was we will walk our road and we will allow them to walk theirs. There will be no crossing into one another's paths. This is about allowing Indigenous sovereignty. It's something that we work on and talk about here daily at Ellen Clark Public School and in the York Region District School Board. So starting in a good way, we'll keep that in mind. So let's get into the meat. What is EQAO? The Education Quality and Accountability Office was created in 1996. It takes the form of a standardized test. It began as a paper test, and I think now, I'm not sure whether it is since COVID or it has at least been for the last 4 or 5 years, that everything is done online. So all of our students this year will be writing online. It's written by all students in Ontario in grades 3, 6, and 9. It focuses specifically on math, reading, and writing, and it monitors and guides education practices and policies in Ontario. And that's a really big and important piece to remember here, because when we think about who benefits from EQAO and what the benefit is it is a system tracking tool put in place by the Ministry of Education so that they can look at long trends in education and they can plan based on those trends. So the results that you're seeing here are the results, our Ontario math results from 2015 to 2019. And you can see this is our 3s, our 6s, and both streams of our grade 9s. Data like this allows the government to plan future educational documents. It allows them to plan professional development for teachers. It allows us to understand where our students need to go next. And then we use this to guide the entire system. So it is not specific to York Region, nor is it specific to our school. This is a much broader piece. One of the things that you will see reference to when we talk about EQAO is the concept of provincial standard. And so you can see that this chart is indicating the number of students in grades 3, 6, and both streams of grade 9 who either were at or above provincial standard. And that's a really important concept for us to understand. We talk about provincial standard all the time, and you've seen it. On the left, this comes from all of our report card documents. And when we talk about provincial standard, we look at the marks B- to B+. On the right-hand side, you can see the entire achievement chart from an R, below 50%, all the way up to our 95 at 100 as a +4. So when we think about standard, we think about a level 3 minus, level 3+ within that window. So we're looking anywhere from about 70 to 79. That is the actual target that our students are being asked to hit when we do any sort of assessment with them. Anything above that, of course, we think of exceeding standard. Anything below that, we think of as approaching standard or below standard. EQAO results are published every year to all stakeholders. That's schools, and that's yourself as well. You have access to all of this on the EQAO website. I'm just going to give you just sort of the overbranching idea, little bit about sort of what the results look like from 2022 to 2023. So looking at 2022 to 2023, our grade 3 students in Ontario, 73% were hitting at or above standard in reading, 65 in writing, and 60 in mathematics. So as a systems tool, we recognize that if we're going to do PD and if we're going to mobilize teachers to think about where we need to direct our attentions in school, we clearly are looking at mathematics. And this is something that we are all doing right now, responding to this type of data to think, what can we do not just to raise the achievement on this test, but what does this test actually reflect about our students' understanding about mathematics? So this is in grade 6, we see this similar concept. In grade 6, we see our numbers are a little different though. 84% and 84% of our students are at or above standard in both reading and writing. And yet we look at mathematics in grade 6, 50% in the province, remember, in the province are achieving at or above standard. Now, one of the things that you have to remember here is that these aren't our numbers here at school. When you get an opportunity to take a look at Ellen Fairclough's numbers, you will recognize that we have achieved much higher in reading, writing, and mathematics in both grades 3 and 6. So it's important to recognize how the province is doing, but as teachers here at school and as parents and students here at Ellen Fairclough, it's also really important to recognize how we are faring in relation to some of the other writers, both in the province and in the board. And the numbers that we're going to find for our school are right here. I'm going to drop this link into the chat when we're done here so you can have an opportunity to go through and look at some of the results. I think that when you do, given the numbers that I just showed you about the province, you're going to be pretty happy because we generally are too. We recognize that our students work hard, but we also know that we achieve at a very high level in comparison to the provincial standard. So just a few questions here, and then we're going to throw it right into whatever questions you may have or whatever other input that any other teachers or admin in the meeting want to share with us. Nice short session. So the first question that we get asked by a lot of parents is, does EQAO impact my child's achievement, or am I going to see EQAO reflected on the report card? And of course, the short answer is no. No, you're not. It's hard to think about it, but in many ways, EQAO isn't about your student in particular. It's about the system. So in so many ways, your child's test results are going to feed into a broader group, a broader data pool that we can be using as a system. So is it going to impact your student? Nope, it's not. Do we use EQAO data to inform our report card writing? No, not at all. We have a lot more data that we use when we write report cards. So when we actually talk to parents about different forms of assessment and how that's coming home as a reflection of your child's work, please look at our report card data. We will provide you with really actionable items and our next steps. We'll provide you with the evidence as to how we know how your students are doing. So it's an interesting comparison, but EQAO is in so many ways for the Ministry of Education, not necessarily for us, those of us in this meeting, thinking about these specific students. Two more questions for you. I have a lot of parents who say, okay, well, what do I need to do? How can I prepare my kids to do well on this test? What do you need to do? Send them to school. Send them to school. These are the dates of our EQAO tests. We will be writing the week of Monday, June the 3rd to Thursday, June the 6th. And if I'm not mistaken, Friday, June the 7th is a PA day this year, if I'm not mistaken. So we will be writing from the 3rd to the 6th. All grade 3 students and all grade 6 students will be writing at the same time. Please make sure they're here. Please make sure they're here on time, well rested, hydrated, ready to go if they want to have their best results. But we can go further with this a little bit. Please make sure they're here at school because we know that we are regularly providing them with activities and challenges and things in the classroom that will prepare them for this test. And to go to the second question, are your children already prepared? A couple short answers, yes. And one of the reasons they're all prepared is because at school, we recognize that EQAO is based on all the skills that these kids have learned from K to 8 through the Ontario curriculum. So for my students this year, for those who are listening and are going to be rating in this classroom a grade 6 test, you're not being tested on grade 6 content. Yes, grade 6 content is on the test, but you're being tested on everything that you've learned more or less between K and 6. So sending your kids to school every day and completing the sort of rich activities that we have here for them is awesome because every day of learning at school prepares them for EQAO. We also know that as an added level of preparation, teachers in grade 3, 6, and 9, and not just at this school, but all the way across Ontario, we will give kids an opportunity to try the test. We show them test questions. We work through the test strategies with them. But more than that, and even more important, I'll go to the first thing that I talked about. Every day we teach high yield strategies that allow our students to be successful, not just on this test, but on everything that they do. So, when we're teaching math, we teach our students academic vocabulary that they can use when they're explaining their thinking. Hey, that's a great way to get a level 4 on an EQAO test, but it's also a great way to get a level 4 on a math test in grade 3, in grade 6, in grade 7, in grade 8. So we teach them to answer questions, to provide evidence from the text, to expand on that evidence by bringing information that they have from their own experiences in life. All of these are high yield strategies that we use daily in our teaching that are going to let these kids be successful on this test and beyond, which is really the most important part. So at school, we're doing that. At home, we already know that you're doing a lot of amazing things to help your students be prepared for this test. You don't need to do more things. Our students, we know this from looking at the reading that your kids are doing or the writing that your kids are doing for us and all the assignments. Man, our kids are awesome here. They have a global perspective. They're really able to apply a lot of really interesting real-world experiences and travel experiences that they've had. And we see it in their thinking. We see it in their writing. We have multilingual students here. And we know that really builds a broad base of understanding. So there's one part that our kids do really well on when doing EQAO. They can really extend their thinking. If you do want to do things at home that are going to help prepare your kids and help them be successful on this test, you've probably heard this from all of us. Reading every day. Reading a grade level text every day at home for at least 30 minutes is one of the best things that they can be doing, not just for this test, but for success in general. We know that also students like to do math practice at home every day, whether it's direct homework that we've sent or whether we've provided things like math frog games. Many, many teachers here have given your children things that they can be doing at home every day to work on those skills. Reading and mathematics are two things that they could be doing every day that will really support them in being successful in this test. Now, of course, every outside experience that you're providing for your kids in extracurricular activities is going to support their critical thinking. Whether they are involved in a sport, that's what they're enjoying, whether they're learning a home language and they're enjoying that, a piano, guitar. There's so many different things that we know that you are doing with your kids at home, and all of these things are going to feed back into success in EQAO. So please don't feel like you need them to be working on EQAO practice packages or anything like that. This is really something that just tests what they've learned so far. And I think that actually brings us to the end of the content that we wanted to share. And if I could summarize very quickly the content that we wanted to share, EQAO is a systems tool. It isn't necessarily school-based or student-based. We have been working with your students for years to prepare them for this test, and we'll continue when it's finished. And we have high hopes. Our results are very good, and we have high hopes that that will continue to be the case. So at that point, now what I'll do is I will go back and grab that link for you, and I'll drop it into the chat. I will put my mic on silent. If anyone has any questions that weren't answered through this stream of information, please, by all means, pop your hand up or open up your mic or put it into the chat, and one of us will be able to find that solution for you. Thanks for listening. Awesome. We got one. What's your question? Yep. Andy, and then we'll look at Miha's question. Sure.
Hello. So I had a question, like in the information, it showed that from June 3rd up until June 6th is when the tests will be conducted. Is it like each day for each section, or is it like compiled into one day and a certain amount of time for each section?
My belief is where our day is broken into 3 blocks. Please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone on this call. Our day is broken into 3 blocks. We will simply take one of those blocks each day to write. So it's not going to be them writing all day. And generally, yes, we will write through a reading booklet or a reading tasks one day, and then we'll work on math tasks. So it won't go back and forth. That answers your question.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem. And Abiha asked a question about recording, I believe. And yes, I believe Mr. Merkley was able to get a recording started. So we will be able to share that with you. So yeah, Abiha, don't stress there. Can we just pass here's assessment papers? Absolutely.
Can I answer that one for a second, though?
Please.
Just to say, just one of the things just to be aware of is that the format of the test has changed significantly in the last couple of years. Prior to COVID, it was much longer. It was done in paper booklets. It took a long time. Kids wrote their answers long form using a pencil and paper. Since COVID, when it's come back the last 2 years, it's been online, and the questions are online, and they're quite different. So just be careful, because sometimes you'll see on the internet or you'll see in stores books that have practice questions, but they're probably from the old version before COVID. So the teachers will let the kids have an opportunity to do sample questions in class. But unfortunately, all those booklets with the old practice questions are from kind of the older version before COVID.
Mm-hmm. And I know that we use those, I've used those with some of my students just to get them to get into the format of using the APE strategy when answering questions. I also know, and I will drop that link in just a moment here. I also know that when you do go on the EQAO site, Mr. Carpani, they might have access to seeing some test samples on the site. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. There are sample ones on the site, and they give a good idea of how the questions look. And since they moved to the online system, if I can sort of speak to my experience the last 2 years, it is kind of, I don't want to say it's like a game, but it's an online platform. The kids log in. The questions are kind of all different types, and they're kind of like they're interactive on the computer. So it might be where they have to, come up with a number and type their answer, but it might also be where they have to, drag different shapes around the screen and match them. It might be a multiple choice question. It might be there's a whole bunch of numbers and they have to drag them in order from smallest to largest or something like that. So they really have taken advantage of the online system, and it's quite interactive. It's not really just like a whole bunch of questions and you need to do a calculation and get the answer for each one. This is the math section, obviously, I'm talking about.
Right. That's good information. Thank you very much. Mrs. Washer, how are you?
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to add something, Mr. Anderson, to what you said based on my experience last year with the grade 3s. One of the things that my kids, I don't want to say struggled with, but one of the things I observed with the kids is that they were very nervous about EQAO. And, when talking to them, it was really important to them to do well because they had been told by their families that they had to get a level 4, because I think there was a misunderstanding that the EQAO was part of the report card.
Good. Okay.
So one of the things, parents, that we can do with our kids, because I'm a mom too, and I remember EQAO with my kids, is if you're calm, they're calm, right? If you're relaxed about it and you pump them up and you tell them they've got all the tools they need, that really does transfer to how they're feeling in the classroom. And you're right, Mr. Carpani, EQAO has changed a lot. But one of the great things that I noticed last year is they really do try to include all of the different learning styles. So we understand that not all kids can do everything on the computer. So they do let you use rough paper. They do let the kids write and scratch out rough notes. They do allow kids to use resources in the classroom like manipulatives and rulers. So, if your child learns differently or you're concerned about how they're going to be able to access the test on the computer, you can relax a little and trust that they've thought about all of those things. It's not just kids sitting at a computer. And teachers have been working really hard to, reduce that anxiety. So if parents and teachers are on the same page, that's going to make it a much easier process for the kids as well.
And the teachers or the students will still have us as a resource in the room when they're writing, right? We are still allowed to support the students writing the test and all of that. We're allowed to reread the questions for them and do what we would do in any other testing situation. So that's a very important piece of information.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add in there?
No, I mean, we do, in Miss Vivian's class, I don't want to speak for Miss Vivian, but I do know that in the grade 3 class, we have time built into our timetable this year. Mr. Carpani and Mr. Merkley built time into our daily schedule where kids are getting some support to prepare for EQAO. So we're very fortunate for that, because kids don't need to go home and study booklets or go to tuition and do drill type of questions, because that's not how EQAO is set up.
Right.
So, and I know you mentioned that,
that's
high yield strategies.
Yep. Well, that's a good addition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Because that is a really important part, because we know how much anxiety it does cause.
Yes.
Anxiety is unnecessary. We know that at the beginning, as Mr. Carpani referenced, the tests were quite onerous. They were long, they were week-long writings. And as Mr. Merkley has just indicated, it's just 100 sessions that we've got to now. Ms. Green, I'm going to come to you in a second. I'm just going to read out what Mr. Merkley has written in a few pieces here. There was a question about whether the results would come in the mail, and yes, students will get the results in the mail. Ms. Walla, the classroom teachers will definitely be there. It will just be like another day in the classroom, supporting students. Ms. Patel, we're looking at June 3rd to June 6th. And I believe it's the middle block. And I think we got all of those. Ms. Vivian, something else you wanted to add in, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to say for Mr. Carpani shared, and then Ms. Washer and I shared as well in our Google Classrooms. Mm-hmm. If students are nervous about it and want to see what the format looks like and the tools and learn some strategies on multiple choice, we have it in our classroom, the links for practicing online, just so they can get a feel for it, so they're not so nervous and it doesn't feel new and fresh to them when they actually go to write it.
Yeah, we're going to do the same thing in grade 6. We'll have an opportunity to poke through. And to Mr. Vinod's question there, resources. We'll be sending home some of the work we've been doing in class, so you can see a little bit about how we're preparing students. There was another hand that went up there. Did I miss that? There's one more question.
I think there was a question about how long the test time, but I believe you answered that already.
Three 100-minute sessions or so. And I think, if I'm not wrong, we've indicated that we're going to do it middle of the day, so students have the best opportunity to be prepared for that test writing. I promised I would do this. There's the link, I believe, to our EQAO results for Ellen Fairclough, as you can see here. Oh, right, Harsha, your question. Mr. Kopani, you may be able to answer this one a little bit more about the math piece. I know that we've talked a lot about in grade 6, really using academic language to explain your thinking. Tell me a little bit about the math on this test.
That's a good question. The best I can say is that all the questions are in a different format, and the question will tell you what to do.
Right.
It's a little bit different than a paper test where you have, just a blank space and you can write whatever you want. So again, some of the questions will just give you maybe a box to put your answer in. Some of the questions will instruct you to do an activity.
Right.
The question, it's based on the question. And if the question wants you specifically to explain what you did, then it will tell you to do that and it'll give you a space to do that. If it just wants your answer, then it'll just ask you for your answer. So when you do the practice questions with your teacher, you'll get an opportunity to see what some of the different types of questions look like.
So the short answer to Harsha is yes. At some point, you will be required to do that. And to Ms. Patel, we're looking at Monday, June 3rd to Thursday, June 6th. Was there another hand? It was Mrs. Washer. Mrs. Washer.
I just thought of I'm not sure if I missed it, but something else we can do as parents during June 3rd to 6th. It is very important that if your child is writing, that they attend school on those days. We don't want to prolong the test. We really would appreciate, making sure your kids are at school on that day. We do have one makeup day, but if children miss too much of that time, it just means that they're writing for even longer on that makeup day.
Yep. That's a good point. How are we doing? Are there any other questions that we can answer for you at this time, or any other pieces of information that anyone would like to share?
Oh, one other thing.
Yeah.
Because I did EQAO last year, one of the things that is really helpful is if students have a pair of headphones.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have some headphones in the school because grade 3 and 6 are writing at the same time this year. I'm not sure that we can say we have enough for everyone. So if students do have headphones at home, we encourage them to bring a very inexpensive pair. We're not asking you, nice try, kids. Don't go out and tell your parents. So you need a $200 gaming set. That absolutely nothing fancy. I've had the same 4 pairs of dollar store headphones in my class for 4 years. So definitely yes, Mr. Merkley, nothing fancy. But headphones, because what happens with EQAO now is it will actually read to you the question, right? So we want to be respectful of the learning of everyone, and we don't want to hear the question read aloud, 25 times. So a pair of headphones from the dollar store would be greatly, helpful for your child for sure.
Amazing. And no need for sign up before the test. Unfortunately, Hadid and Rare have already been signed up. Better for us. They're ready to go. Ms. He, how are you?
Hi, I have a question. Like, what happened if the child who passed the result, passed the exam, is it only have the result or other things will be happen?
So when you get the results in the mail, and I'm sorry, I don't have one here, it will break it down. So you'll get a letter and it'll break it down sort of on a broader scale of where your child fit with that reading and the writing and the mathematics. And it will be sort of, like I said, on a scale between 1 and 4. And that's really it, to be at the end of the day. There's really nothing more that's going to come of it. I'm sorry if that's not very exciting, but really that's it. They'll write the results in grade 3. They'll write the results in grade 6. In grade 9, the game changes a little bit because in grade 9, it is a literacy test that students have to pass.
That's grade 10, Mr.
Yes.
The 9's the math one.
Right. So the grade 10 literacy test is the only one that's a little bit more higher leverage, whereas these 3 are system tools. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah. So you'll get a piece of paper, and basically it will say, for example, reading, kind of level 4, writing level 3+, math level 4-, or something like that. That's basically what you get is the level in all 3 of the different areas.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
But there is a bit of a delay, so your child will receive that next year. So if they're in grade 3 now, they'll get it kind of in the fall of grade 4. If they're in grade 6 now, they'll get those results kind of in the fall of grade 7. So it does take a little bit of time.
Aiden, I'm looking at your AirPods question, and I'm wondering whether they'd be able to connect to our laptops here at school. That would be my only concern. Not sure. Not sure. We could try it, but not sure. Okay. If there are no further questions or any other pieces of information that we'd like to share, thank you, Mrs. Washer. Hydrated, well-fed, and full of sleep, ready to go. That's what we're looking for our students. Please do recognize that this is not the last opportunity that we will have to have this conversation. If there's anything that comes up after the fact that you would like to know more about, please do not hesitate to reach out to your child's teacher, and we'd be more than happy to guide you with further information. But if there is nothing further, then I will simply say thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. Really, really appreciate your presence here and looking forward to a great test. Mr. Merkley, something you'd like to finish up with?
Yeah, Mr. Anderson, just want to thank you for responding to feedback that you've heard from the community and from staff and from students about these questions that some of us have had. We really appreciate you organizing this and bringing us all together tonight. Thank you very much, Ms. Washer and Ms. Vivian, for being here this evening. And you can see the appreciation from our families for all of your support for being here tonight. We also hope that all of you will join us next Wednesday night for our Snuggle Up and Read. We're really, really looking forward to having you come to school, your little ones. Probably grade 6, you're welcome to, but I think our grade 3s for sure. And for any younger siblings, would love to come to school in their pajamas with a teddy bear. And we're going to read story time books from 6 to 7 next week, correct? So we hope that you'll join us, and we're looking forward to seeing you, okay?
Yep. Amazing. Thanks for sending us great kids, everyone. We will see you tomorrow. Be well.
Amazing. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thanks, Ms. Washer. Thanks, Ms. Vivian. Thank you, parents, for coming tonight. Great to see all of you.
I'm not sure we're going to be able to shut down this party that we got going on.
I know, it's fun.